Star Citizen has a new game mode, Theatres of War, and I was able to play it at this year's CitizenCon. It's a game mode that you never knew you wanted, and some of you probably don't. But it's this new objective-based arcade Combined Arms FPS mode for Star Citizen in the style of Battlefield 5 Rush or Unreal Tournament Assault. The mode's unique selling point and offering is the scale of Star Citizen, which is being leveraged to allow for amazingly huge battlefields, planets, space stations, vehicles, ships, and incredibly high fidelity, allowing them to do a huge amount with what Star Citizen already has to offer. So currently the mode is 20v20, though they plan to add more to that in the future. So expect to have varied amounts of match sizes and bigger matches and all that sort of stuff. It is class-based. Well, it's actually loadout-based, with 4 presets to choose currently for each of the teams: Foot Soldier, Assault, Sniper, Anti-Vehicle, and these have different loadouts based on which teams you are on, based on the scenario. There are different ships and vehicles that you can spawn in or jump in as a pilot, gunner, or passenger, allowing for a vastly different style of attack each time you potentially play. And it's objective-based, with 3 distinct phases that appear to progress even if objectives are defended. It will still move on to the next objective eventually, and it rewards the defenders or attackers for succeeding or holding back the enemy by, time. The matches are sort of like supposed to be about half an hour in length, but if the defenders hold a point for a long period of time, the attackers then don't have much time to take the last 2 points. Attackers that progress quickly will have a lot of time to destroy the final objective. It is planned to be playable in early 2020, and this could potentially see it released in the first iteration with Star Citizen Alpha 3.9 at the end of March 2020, but you'll see it in the EVOCATI and PTU phases earlier than that. My experience at CitizenCon though, so the scenario that we were playing at CitizenCon was called Crossroads of Crime. I'm assuming this is the only one that's fleshed out. This saw the Outlaw team, the Supreme, fighting against the Advocacy, a tactical unit of theirs. The Advocacy are trying to assault and remove the Supreme presence and take out their stronghold. The Supreme would rather destroy their stronghold and basically themselves and the Advocacy than let it fall to the Advocacy. So the idea here is that there's a mining laser and that needs to be destroyed by the Advocacy, otherwise the Supreme are going to use it to destroy their own base. So there are 3 phases to this mission, and it seems that that is the plan typically for the game mode, 3 phases, and the rounds are planned to be about 30 minutes. So the first phase is to destroy the Aie Turrets, if you're the attacker anyway. So the attackers must assault a complex and hack 2 laptops. The second phase is to destroy a radar tower. There are 2 ways to do this: either hack a console to overload the system as the attackers, or you need to destroy the actual radar directly by just dealing damage to it with ships and weapons. Now, getting to the console and hacking it is actually quite difficult because it's in a building which is heavily defended, but you can deal damage to the radar station pretty easily, although it's got a huge amount of health. The third phase is to disable the mining laser. You've got to either destroy the mining laser head, which again is a big structure, but you can also hack any of the 3 consoles around it, which are in a station around it, that will deal damage to it as well. So basically you do both simultaneously. You're shooting this mining laser head and also dealing damage by hacking these consoles, which those consoles also have cooldowns to encourage you to move around. So you can't just keep on hacking the same console. They cool down for like 30 seconds. I played a full game as each team. So to start, I was playing as the Outlaw defending team. When you spawn, you have a choice of points to spawn at, pretty much in every phase. With the first phase, we had to defend 2 laptops, which are basically hold a point and prevent enemies from being in that area. If they stand in that area for too long, uncontested, then they capture it. To complete the objective, they need to capture both, and once you've captured one, that's permanently captured. There was also a capturable spawn point for the attackers to take. So there was this like locked spawn point. If you had gone there, you could capture it, and then your team can spawn there freely. These capturable spawn points will give your team more flexibility and might be worth capturing, and they appear in some of the phases and not others. The attackers had access to an Ursa rover at the first phase, but there wasn't much in the way of other vehicles that I saw here, but it couldn't really enter the building where the laptops were. So the defenders are very dug in here, and the enemy came sort of like close to pushing us a few times. Like at one point, 10 players came running in through one of the like major entryways, and there are a huge amount of entryways. There's like 5 or 6 ways that you could push into each of the buildings with the laptops, and they chucked grenades in, and grenades are incredibly important in this mode, but it is quite close quarter fighting and very action-packed. Some of the general jitteriness and clunkiness of the FPS gameplay left a little bit to be desired there. It let the game down a bit, but it was still fun. They were able to capture point A, but we held point B until the game moved on to phase 2. The second phase opened up a lot more of the sort of like combined arms gameplay. There were ships and vehicles fighting along with infantry on both sides, and there was a tunnel that the enemy team were coming down, and then it opened up into a large area. There was a tower to assault it. It was pretty cool. So there was only a limited sort of like availability of vehicles. There was the Cyclone TR, the Ezra Rover, the Blister, as well shipwise, the Buccaneer, Arrow, Super Hornet, and Hoplite. I hadn't realised that the new to sort of like point to defend was so far away once we got pushed to the second point, because I was still at the first phase location and I was driving there. It hadn't respawned me there. There was no button I could work out at the time to push to respawn me there, but thinking about it now, I should have held backspace and that would have killed me, and then I could have gone to that new spawn point and just spawned there. But I took an enemy as a rover and parked it in this tunnel and just shot anything that went past by me for about 5 minutes. So it was basically a roadblock. I was trying hard. The weapons on the Urza are really great for attacking ground vehicles and infantry, and it really makes these ground vehicles come into their own. I eventually used a grenade to respawn myself after the enemy team stopped coming through that tunnel, and I was able to spawn directly defending the radar station. There was a lot of pew-pew and vehicles moving around. Very hectic. But I didn't feel like anything was too overpowered. Ships were getting shot down very easily by ground crews. I say very easily. There was a lot of people shooting them with missile launchers. I decided at this point that I loved the anti-tank class, as they had heavy armor, a railgun, and a machine gun, and that's just really, really, really useful. That allows you to take on pretty much everything. Sort of like a weapon for each individual task was available to me. So we just sort of held out there. It was very hard for the enemy to push there, and with about 5 minutes left, the enemy moved on to phase 3, which had them assaulting our mining laser in orbit. They were able to spawn directly on the station, it seemed, but also ships like the Hoplite and more support with Hornets were also available for the attackers to be able to assault the station and literally just shoot the mining head. But they could have assaulted with a load of them coming out the Hoplite or whatever. As it was a sort of like new game mode for people, we didn't 100% know exactly what the best thing to do was, or where the spawn points were, and exactly how to move around the stations and that sort of stuff. So the attacking team sort of like got repelled reasonably easily. They did assault the objective and take like a quarter of its health off. The objectives have a lot of health though. The second game though was a huge amount more fun for me, being the attackers anyway. So breaching the first phase's base with a group of guys on comms, and then pushing the points one at a time very surgically was really good fun. We really pushed into that base as the advocacy and took those laptops pretty quick. And the second phase was probably the most fun I've had in Star Citizen. I'd gone to the anti-armor class again, but it's a different loadout with different teams. So I had the Animus missile launcher, which is a beast of a weapon that I hadn't used before. It fires 3 missiles in bursts, which can lock onto vehicles and ships and objectives. So we were pummeling the radar station with these Animus missile launchers, a load of us. Rather than trying to hack the console, we sort of like zerged it with ships and missiles and ground troops and ground vehicles. It took a lot of punishment over like 7 minutes, but it eventually went down. And then phase 3 had us flying up to this space station in orbit, this mining laser, and we had the opportunity to use the Hoplite to assault the station. I was quite try-hard as well, so I was sort of like alternating between going with my teammates and then spawning on the station sometimes and assaulting consoles by myself. It was really good fun and really fast-paced throughout. As I said earlier, it was interesting that the objectives progressed even when the attackers had not completed them after a certain amount of time. I'm not sure if that's sort of like intended game design, or if it's more sort of like they wanted to artificially progress the sort of like rounds so that we could see what each of the phases was like for the sort of like demo that we were playing. I don't know. I do actually think that having objectives progress is actually quite a good thing. You just give less time to the attackers and defenders. Do you know what I mean? So if the attackers take 15 minutes to take the first point, or it just automatically progresses after 15 minutes, that's fine because they've only got 15 minutes to take the last 2 points. So that's sort of fine. That sort of makes sense. As long as it's balanced appropriately, I'm fine having that because it keeps the pace of the game and it's much more arcadey and sort of like for practicing and getting your skills up, I suppose, for the actual persistent universe for a lot of people, although I suspect some people will just play this sort of like game mode instead. You can draw direct comparisons to objective-based modes like Battlefield 5 Rush, where typically those modes and those games have a billion times more polish than what Star Citizen and Theatres of War currently has, as well as a lot more balance, more maps, better network code. They are just better currently at doing what Star Citizen Theatres of War is doing. Gameplay suffered at times from various issues. When I was a defender especially, I found the gameplay could be slow-paced at times. It's not really slow-paced, I suppose, but it's slower than what was intended. There was a little bit of a trying to work out what we should do next and the distances between these sort of like objectives, because there was quite a large distance between some of the objectives from the different spawn points. What else was there? There was no hold to spawn at new location sort of like button or go just spawn here now sort of thing when you were at an old spawn point and they pushed to a new area. Really it should auto spawn you there, or sort of like really tell you to you might want to respawn or something like that. The animations are clunky and jittery and general character movements are not great currently. There were low frame rates, hitting around 30 to 40 most of the time. Hit reg and that sort of stuff is just requires a lot of network code work. One of the things I'd say is the optimal way to win in the game mode isn't necessarily the coolest. And there are a load of cool tactics and cool things I wish I'd done if I'd played another round of it. But I was there to sort of win, and my win brain takes over. There is a big need for balance and polish. That will come in time, though. I mean, some of the other things, grenades would drop out of my hand sometimes when I tried to throw them. And we had to use Discord, as I assume the VoIP servers weren't working properly. But there's a lot of cool stuff that this mode can do once it's polished, and that's what it needs. It needs a load of polish and a good amount more work. So does Theatres of War actually help Star Citizen's development of its persistent universe? Well, yes, apparently. They're not spending a ton of time on it, according to Sean Tracy. A lot of the development resources that mode has are in Star Citizen already, and then they're just building a map for it. They are working on Star Marine and Arena Commander 2. There are apparently big plans for them, but Theatres allows for more rapid balance of combined arms gameplay and the defending and attacking of outposts, installations, structures, how sort of like team fights and multiplayer interactions between organizations and fighting between them will work. Star Citizen's persistent universe even now is too large scale to effectively use an Anvil Ballista anti-air missile truck, at least with the current player server cap, unless you would organize something with another org to play against them or to play interplay with your org or whatever. You're not going to be defending anything, or why would you be defending anything with that ballista currently? But in a mode that has constant action, they can make use of this vehicle as intended. Actually thinking about it, really, ground vehicles in general don't have much use combat-wise, especially in Star Citizen currently, but they are core to Theatres of War, and they will be core to Star Citizen's persistent universe in the future. It's just, at the moment, they don't have much use. Again, netcode and optimizations, that allows them to be tested in sort of like a much more confined ecosystem, where they can see directly what's happening with hit reg and all that sort of stuff. This mode has been made more possible by server object container streaming and V4 of their planet tech, and it can be scaled to huge planet-side battles and moving across planets and capital ships and lots of stuff. In fact, talking more to Sean Tracy, they said we could see objective-based scenarios on capital ships, some of the larger ones eventually. They want theatres to be constantly being updated and added to as well. The feedback obtained from CitizenCon will help evolve and balance the game mode in the short term. Future plans, and in the shorter term, they want to make this sort of like game mode easier to party up with, easier to form squads with. You're going to be able to stay in games without as much downtime. They don't want to keep on putting you back to lobby, this bam, next game. They want to have matchmaking updates. They're going to be adding new mechanics and new maps. They want improvements to FOIP and VoIP, so they would prefer people to use their own in-game systems rather than, you know, Discord and that sort of stuff. And they want it to be able to support quickly on the fly fire teams and groups in vehicles to be able to quickly talk to each other. Development resource-wise, I think Sean said that it was 20 devs on and off working on it for a few months. They had some other teams sort of like come in and help out with certain bits, but it was more about building maps out with the game mode than anything else. And now, especially now that they've got the structure for it, they're able to build maps with a smaller team, and they've got the bare bones of it in there now. Technically, Theatres of War is a game mode for StarEngine. The theatres and scenarios presented in the game mode are supposed to have some sort of like significance in lore. They're like historical battles and war zones there, and I quite liked what this game mode could bring. I love objective-based game modes, and I'm a massive fan of Star Citizen, so combining the two is pretty cool. To be successful though, it has to bring a load of elements together and do it well. It needs to get rid of all the bugs, it needs to have a huge amount of polish, and it needs to do this sort of like objective mode well and in a Star Citizen-y way, and have this updated network code and not have animation problems and hit reg problems. So there's a lot to do there. Otherwise, there will just be other games that do the objective modes better. I do think, though, that there is already the basis of something quite awesome here, and I'm looking forward to playing it more in 2020. But what do you think? Is this a game mode that you're interested in? Is it just a waste of development time? Would you prefer that CIG announced this when they first started developing it? Or do you like something like this as a surprise, or like slightly more fleshed out before we first see it? Can Theatres of War be better than Battlefield 5 Rush and other objective modes of more polished games? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Every month we have a Star Citizenship giveaway for December, and to celebrate 2019, we are giving away a Carrack, the mighty explorer ship. It does also come with that Pisces and the Urza Rover too. To be in for a chance of winning that, all you need to do is comment on any of my videos made during this month of December. Only one of your comments counts per video. Full details down below. A quick bit of shilling as well. Shadow provide remote access to high-spec gaming PCs as a subscription service, so you don't need to maintain your own gaming PC. You can leverage the power of your internet to turn your phone, tablet, laptop, or home PC into a monster. They are taking pre-orders for their new hardware configurations, scaling for 4K gaming, up to 32 gigs of RAM, and a GeForce Titan RTX, which I am very much looking forward to playing Star Citizen on. Links below, and use the code BoredGamer to get a discount. There is also an additional offer if you are in the US as well, that you get basically 50% off, and you can even use my BoredGamer code on top of that as well for additional discount. I also use NordVPN, which I've decided to continue to support, as they appear to have one of the best VPN services currently available at an affordable price. If you're looking for a VPN, consider them. Links below. Thank you so much for watching my video to the end. If you would like to share my video, comment, subscribe, like, all that sort of jazz, ring the bell, that all helps content creators. Also, if you want to further support the channel even more, there's Patreon, there's direct donation, there's the YouTube join button as well, which gives you access to some more sort of like exclusive content from me. Thank you very much for watching. You take care, and I'll see you in the verse.